it's mid-July and Total War Pharaoh is only a few months away with a release in October being touted. And I think we have enough now to start going into some of these aspects of this game in detail, which is easy because there's only a few things that this has been marketed on. One of them is weather, which is something we've had since the very start with Shogun 1, 23 years ago. But guys, they are now doing something special here because they are doing dynamic weather. Let's just let them describe it, and then we'll go into some more recent stuff that they've given us on this.
We had weather system in previous Total Wars, but now we're introducing a dynamic change to the weather.
Dynamic.
So, for example, a battle can start in a rain environment, and it can gradually become a storm or even a thunderstorm. And that can change the terrain as well. In rain, there will be patches of mud appearing on the battlefield. And, for example, in a sandstorm, there will be patches of sand just gradually building up.
Yeah, and those have effects on the units that are going to be on the battlefield. For an example...
Yeah, I've seen those effects. Here they are. Mud. 20%, 40%, 50%, 20%, 20%. Yeah, really inspired stuff there. Actions use more stamina. Really inspired.
Heavier units or chariots are going to find it hard to move through mud.
Chariots finding it hard to move through mud. Isn't that going to just be a reduction of 40%? Reduction to charge bonus? It only reduces their charge bonus by half. So this is not very playful here. You can negate the effects of mud by just having two chariots doing the charge if it's only reducing it by half. Chariot speed only 20% reduced. Medium chariot 20% to speed. Charge speed and speed only 20% reduction for medium chariots and mud. That seems really safe. I'm not impressed by that. Fucking hell. Slows down heavier units and reduces their combat effectiveness. So what about light chariots? Can light chariots just pretend the mud isn't there? This is what I'm talking about. This is not very playful or adventurous here. This is really safe. 50% isn't much when in previous games rain would just stop arquebuss and handgunners from being able to shoot altogether. You know what I mean? It just seems really safe. Not very interesting. You can't just decisively take units out of the fight by having mud because they still do half of their damage, so they only have to bring twice as many units for it to nullify that. And it's quite easy a lot of the time to just have two units there instead of one for the same effect. You would think mud would mean chariots just get stuck and then they're done for the whole fight. Come on, make it interesting, you know? Like what happened to Agincourt when guys were just falling face flat into the mud and drowning, or losing grip on their swords, or actually just getting stuck in the mud. Can you imagine guys just getting stuck up to their knees or their thighs in the mud, or just drowning in their armour? There's so much that they could do if they just decided to implement stuff, you know, have systems there for effects of mud. I just don't understand how they can think this is good enough in 2023. This seems like something you could do on 80s software, you know.
And that sort of terrain. Sand.
See, they're doing fine. You can pretty much just ignore this, and you can almost never decisively utilise this against the AI or against players. It's not going to make that much of a difference, considering what it actually is and what it's supposed to be. Tactically decisive thinking and well thought out and planned. Like, what's the point in planning for this if it's going to be so negligible, you know?
Is going to exhaust units moving through it faster, depending again on how light they are, thus giving the lighter units more advantage when they're fighting on sand. And the weather itself is going to change the way some of the units behave. For example, archers are going to find it much harder to hit their targets when they're trying to shoot in a sandstorm. You can imagine how hard that can be.
So the dynamic weather has, like, again, completely changed the way...
There's the phrase dynamic weather, and I think one of the Bulgarian guys said dynamic weather earlier as well.
You look at battles now, so you've got rain, you've got thunderstorms. Is there anything else we can expect from weather?
Yes, there is also fog, which is from previous Total Wars. There is Sandstorm, which I mentioned before, and there is sweltering weather, which is a desert being really hot.
It's very warm, very, very hot.
Yeah, this will happen.
These are all things that we've had before in Total War games and over 2 decades ago. So they're just improving the depiction, making it more visually interesting while making it more systemically deep. Am I right there? Is it going to be more deep?
Huge impact on the exhaustion levels
Yes.
of your units, and you need to be careful when you're fighting in sweltering weather conditions. The players are not going to be expecting the dynamic weather in every battle that they're
Dynamic
fighting.
weather.
They will need to adapt to.
Yeah, this is
The new
something that they need
situation.
to adapt to and see how their tactics might change. Because if they have thought that they can take a certain approach towards the enemy, but then a rain comes out and makes it so that this whole terrain becomes all muddy, they might think that this approach might not be as good for their chariots, for example, and need to change their battle plans on the fly when those things happen. Choosing where you fight basically will depend on the type of army that you're building and want to have. For example, it's a very natural thing that the Egyptians have much lighter armies that are going to be finding it easier to fight when they're on sand or in sweltering weather because their armor is usually not as heavy and they're kind of used to that type of terrain. Where
And this is something Medieval 1 did 21 years ago. That had heat exhaustion, and camels would stand in the desert all day long and be fine, but regular cavalry of horse and heavy infantry would just exhaust by even standing there in the desert.
Whereas the Hittites, being more heavily armored and not so used to this type of terrain, are going to be finding it much harder when they need to fight in the sand. On the other hand, they are heavier with better armor, so in hand-to-hand engagements, when the Egyptians are not using the advantage of their terrains around them, the Hittites might have an upper hand in that.
Yeah. And there are even units that have even more advantage when fighting in the desert just because they're suited and they've lived their whole lives in the desert.
I don't know, this is just a small thing, but I don't know if you would fight better from being in the desert. I think it's more that the desert just drags everyone down and some people are better at handling it. Maybe camels can trot better on sand than they can on hard ground. Maybe.
That's awesome. So it sounds like there are a ton of factors that weigh in any battle, from the unit you're bringing to the field to the weather. What else is in Total War Pharaoh that makes it different from other?
Alright, so that's the weather thing, and we had some articles because of this. Unleash the power of weather in Total War Pharaoh. Pharaoh's groundbreaking dynamic weather feature revolutionises the game's battles. And then we've got Game Rant here. Total War Pharaoh's dynamic weather is a game changer. You're right, Game Rant. And then we've got, and it says here, the brand new dynamic weather feature. And then we've got Total War Pharaoh is making huge changes to battles, from dynamic weather and terrain to armor degradation. And this is such a simple system, the armor degradation. I want to get into that more at some point when I've got more detail on it, but it seems really simplistic so far and probably an ill-conceived idea on top of that. But yeah, look, huge changes to battles, dynamic weather. And this is PC Gamer. Alright, so let's see what they actually say about this when they expound further. This was 3 weeks ago. Let's listen.
While also playing the battle, it's not the greatest. But we have a good question here. Now that the weather has become sweltering, can it change again? Let's say that this battle went on for another 40 minutes.
No, the weather is going to change max one time in a battle.
The weather changes one time in a battle, so as has been stated elsewhere that I read, this is a lot more like a weather event than dynamic weather. This is one weather event. The weather changes one time. Let's look up the definition of dynamic, shall we? Oxford English Dictionary. Dynamic, of a process or system characterised by constant change, activity or progress. Constant change. How the hell is changing one time and one weather event dynamic. It's one change. That's a switch. That's a binary switch from off to on, or from on to off. What in the fuck?
So it can start with one weather and then either change to another weather or not change at all. In custom battles, you can set that. If you can put it as to random, like we have been doing, or you can set it that weather starts as dry and changes to sweltering, or weather starts as rain and goes into a thunderstorm, or starts as rain and goes into a dry, and so on. On the campaign map, it is going to be random, based on the region that you are.
Look at this. Is there a change in wind direction? So this is asking if there's a land thing for what we had in, for example, Shogun 2 naval battles where there was a wind direction that would affect sails. Why can we not have a wind direction that affects projectiles? You know? Imagine if there's wind at your back going towards the enemy. Your arrows would carry much farther and their arrows would be going into the wind to get to you. You would have a range advantage. Two units that are the same firing at each other, one assisted by the wind. You've got a wind tunnel carrying your arrows towards the enemy, and they're fighting against the wind, and they can't even return fire until they get much closer. We could have all of this. We could have a wind direction. There's so much they could do, and they just don't do any of it. There's no way there's going to be a wind direction in this game. They're not going to implement that. It's going to just be... Wind has a magnitude. Let's say there's a magnitude from 0 up to 10, and 10 means there's a maximum malice applied to accuracy. That's it. It's going to just affect accuracy. It won't even affect range because they can't implement that. They can't simulate that. So even the questions people ask are just hopelessly optimistic. There's no way they're going to have a wind direction.
So you are not going to have control of that. And once it changes, it will remain with the changed weather for the rest of the battle. Now, when exactly the change happens is not something that is set, and it is a little bit random.
So there's at least variation that's unpredictable in when the weather event happens, but there's only one weather event, and it sounds like he confirms there that there's only one weather event per battle no matter what. In campaign and custom battle, there's just one weather event, which is not dynamic, constant change, activity or progress. Fucking hell. Alright, let's go to Shogun 1, shall we? Let's go to the tutorial for Shogun 1. Alright, here's the tutorial. First encounter.
You must now learn the way of the land, the mastery of the weather and the wind.
Shogun 1 from 1999-2000, talking about wind in the first battle you've ever seen in Total War. Within the first seconds, you've got weather and wind. It's obvious what the direction was supposed to be for Total War, and they've just not taken it. This is a case of 10 steps back, 1 step forward, and Pharaoh is an attempted step forward after 10 steps back with Rome 2, Warhammer, 3K, Troy. See, if you want, you could have this idea of CA Sophia where they are the actual tactical Total War players that are trying to make a properly tactical game, but they've just been given such a deficit from CA in England with all these games that they're pumping out where it's just cool monsters and magic spells, and it's so hard for them to make a tactical Total War game again that's like the original ones. Look at this, it's raining here.
Attack. Left click upon the enemy flag.
They're talking about rain, they're talking about wind, you're on a hill, they're going up a muddy hill to get to you, they're going to tire quicker because it's in the rain, we're firing down into them, the rain's going to affect our arrows a little bit, but we have all this height advantage on them. So that's the tutorial of the first Total War game, the very first seconds of being on the battle map in a Total War game if you were there from the very start like I was. This is what you got. You got weather, you got terrain, they even mentioned wind, which was promising. I think they hoped that future Total War games would have wind. And then let's look at this. Alright, I did a custom battle in Shogun 1. This was a 4v4 with AI, and I just went for some crazy weather. Oh, flickering there because I'm using Shadowplay to record it. Look at all of these massive armies. Look at this. They span the entire battlefield, a 4v4. I've got arquebus there that can't even shoot yet. Let's get some thunder. Come on. Thunder strikes, come on. I want some strokes of thunder. You hear the wind, you see the rain. It's a 4v4, let's get forward, get some thunder. Alright, look, the rain stopped. I'm only a minute in and the rain has stopped, it's subsided temporarily, so there's the weather event, the first weather event. And I'm fast forwarding in game. The melee's broken out, my arquebus can fire now if I was there in time. Alright, I've unfast forwarded, it's going in regular time. Look at all of these units. Look at them sprawling the entire battlefield. Holy shit. This was 1989, 2000. This was the last century, the beginning of Total War. I'm gonna fast forward, let's get some more weather. Oh look, the rain's about to start. Look, so the rain stopped, and it's about to start again. See it coming down the screen? There we go, we got rain again. Are we gonna get thunder? I'm mostly being passive in this one. Look at that, you see fog coming, it's so humid, it's so hot and humid, and you hear thunder. This is a classic tropical thunderstorm in Japan, look at this. You've even got the soundtrack, which is great, which recent Total War games have just given up on pretty much. No more Jeff Van Dyke. It's a shame. Are we gonna get thunder? Let's turn the volume up, just in case. Look at this fight on the side of the hill. I hear the wind picking up, the rain's getting thicker. It's getting heavier, this rain. Well, I hear guns going off in the background, but no thunder yet. And the rain stopped again. Wait, is that thunder? No, it's guns again. The guns and the thunder sound similar. Rain's getting lighter, you see the storm clouds though in the background. Alright, we're gonna get thunder, I can tell. Haha, there we go. Holy shit, there's even a flash that corresponds to it. Let's see how long this thunderstorm goes on for in this massive battle, in this custom battle. Look at all of these corpses. The field is... Oh man. A double lightning strike. Double flash, double strike. And it's great because you even have distant flashes and it rumbles with a lower frequency as well. They really thought about this and wanted to make it immersive. There you go, there's the sheet lightning and the low rumble. Look at that, this is so good, and the rain is now subsiding a bit. So we were in the eye of the storm, and then it went away. Look, the rain's stopping again. So the rain comes, the rain goes, it's dynamic. And there's wind as well going on at the same time. Alright, let's fast forward, get more rain. Alright, there comes the rain again. You can see the fog starting to fill the field once more. Or it's just storm clouds that are just putting a overcast look on the whole battlefield as the heavy rain's about to come. How good would it be if you saw the clouds forming and then there was rain? So it let you prepare. Come on, just model all this stuff, make it interesting. And now you hear the wind picking up. So now we've got heavy rain, it's overcast. Are we going to get thunder again? And the matchlocks, the arquebus are now firing because the rain stopped, see that? I'm now able to use my arquebus because there's been a lull in this thunderstorm. So you can time your attacks. Look at them ramming their muzzles. Something they can do now because their powder isn't going to get wet. And now you hear the wind really picking up. And the battle's drawn to a close. But there's still a Kensai on the field. This is dynamic weather in Shogun 1. The first try at a Total War game, it actually had dynamic weather. It didn't even call it that, it was just weather. It just had weather, you know? It just had weather and did it in an interesting way from the very beginning. It was subsequent Total Wars that gutted it out, and now it has to be reintroduced. using the marketing buzzword, dynamic weather. Right, and I'm looking for the thing I'm thinking of now. Oh! Look at that Akensai dueling samurai amidst a field of corpses while thunder strikes boom around the battlefield. Look at that. Look at all these corpses as well, they're just everywhere. Some Akensai is dueling samurai archers, and they're getting absolutely pasted. Let's fast forward. Yep, there's still a Kensai on the field, and I'm trying to gun him down when the rain stops. That's what I'm trying to do. And it's hard. I'm trying to pull him in front of the guns using my infantry. And they can't shoot right now. See, look, my guns can't even shoot. Those are arquebus here, and they can't even shoot that Kensai because of the rain. And they have to shoot him because he is a sword saint. He is the original single entity hero. But if he gets shot, he's dead just like any other man on the battlefield. So all I need to do is get an opening when the rain stops and actually shoot him. Alright, shots have been taken on that Kensai now that the rain stopped. The dynamic weather has allowed me to shoot. And you see the clouds of smoke rising. Oh! No, it's going to start raining again. You hear that thunder, you see that flash. The storm is coming back. I'm still trying to kill him though. I'm still trying. He's so far away though, it's going to be a hell of a shot if I can kill him. And he's out of range. And yet the rain's coming back. Now I have to just run away and pull another unit over here to get his attention. Man. There they go, they're ramming their muzzle loaders. Here we go. And that was it. He's dead. And that is weather in Shogun 1, 1999 or 2000. Last century technology, and it could do it. And that was just a 4v4 custom battle in Shogun 1. There you go, dynamic weather. The first time they made a Total War game, it was important enough to have weather. So it's one of the features that were part of the Total War formula, and it's since been demoted beneath magic spells, kill monsters. It's a travesty. We didn't even have auto-resolve yet in these games. And to give some more detail, here is what it looks like when you're actually waiting for a fight in Shogun 1. So that is light wind all day, no change expected. This is what you do before a battle in Shogun 1. Light wind all day, no change expected. Fine day expected. Light wind all day, fine day. Let's get another one. More previews, more examples of weather. Light rain all day, rain showers expected all day. Cold day, no change expected. And cold day means that heavily armoured infantry tire quicker, I think. Fine day, light rain all day. And let's get another one. And that's fog, I think, you see there. Fog. Fine day, fog all day, heavy fog expected all day. So they had fog right at the start. Heavy fog all day. Alright, let's find another one. Light rain all day, heavy rain all day. And remember, the rain stops and starts. And now let's get an example of snow. Snow showers all day, light snow expected all day, snow expected all day, light snow all day. And now let's do Medieval 1. This was the game that came after Shogun 1. This was the second try. Alright, Medieval 1 weather, let's go. Fine throughout the day. Heavy snowfall becoming calmer later on. Moderate snowfall easing later. Blizzards with wind picking up later. Look at that, blizzards with wind picking up. My god. And then, as they stand in the snow, they get tired. You see the fatigue on the top left of the unit cards here. So as these bars deplete, that means they're more tired. You see my infantry mostly just standing there. Alright, so these three units are not really moving that much. Let's find a good example of this. Alright, this is a good example. So, let's have a look at what we pick here. Snowstorms becoming worse later on. Heavy snowfall easing later. Heavy snowfall that eases, so we're in the snow. Snow is falling. Let's see what happens. I think I fast forward this one. Look. So I've got cavalry just standing there doing nothing. Look at that, they're getting tired by just standing there because I'm fast forwarding it. Look at this. You see their fatigue depleting. Look at that. That is heavy cavalry. I think those are feudal knights. And they're getting really tired even though they haven't even moved. 20% movement speed reduction to chariots. My ass. Look at this. My heavy cavalry are exhausting by just standing in the snow. They're standing in snow. Nothing's happening and they're getting tired. And then look, the snow clears and now they're regaining their stamina a little bit. Look at that. So when they're standing, oh look, and then the infantry here are losing stamina. I'm not doing anything. They are just standing there. And the snow's packed up and now they're getting really tired. Look at that, everything's getting tired. Look at that, these guys are exhausted. These heavy knights are exhausted. The absolute tanks of the ancient battlefield, these heavy knights, they dominate the medieval battlefield and they're becoming actually exhausted by standing in the snow and in the cold, just standing there. No modern Total War game would take this risk. Look at this. My whole army, look at that, they have no fatigue left, they are totally exhausted, they can't even charge anymore, they can't run, they're too tired to run. And now it's coming back a little bit. See that? That is incredible. What happened to Total War? Seriously, what happened? 20% reduction to speed for medium chariots and mud. Holy shit, are you guys joking? Give me a break here with this. Alright, let's find some more weather now. Alright, we've got sand. Oh, this is the true test. Sand in Medieval 1 in 2002. Sandstorms all day. And this was a video uploaded to my second channel a few days ago. You might have seen it in a community post. I also made another one for Shogun 1. These are all videos up on my second channel. Dynamic weather in Medieval 1 2 decades ago. Sandstorms all day. Calm weather expected. Sandstorms all day. Calm weather expected. Calm with sandstorms predicted later. Alright, let's watch this. Dynamic weather. Boys, here we go. We're going to have sandstorms that start and stop. This is supposed to be an impressive feature in 2023 in Pharaoh. We already had it 2 decades ago, man. Holy shit. What is going on here? What alternate dystopian reality am I living in? Don't get me wrong, it's good that they're actually doing this, but they should at least acknowledge what it is. If they just owned it and said, alright, Total War has taken absolutely fucking so many steps back in the past. Let's just be honest here and say 2 decades. Even Rome Total War gutted a lot of stuff out. Let's just say Total War has been backsliding horribly from its inception. It's been gutting out so many features, it's been playing it so safely, it's been relying on so many gimmicks and cheap crutches like cool monsters and magic spells. It's time to have an actually proper Total War game again, like Shogun 1, Medieval 2, Shogun 2. Let's have a tactical Total War. Here at Sea Sophia, we are determined to bring Total War back to its roots and make a proper RTT game that has really satisfying tactics. We're going to contrast ourselves with Warhammer and what it's done to Total War. We stand for something different. We are here for all of the players that want gameplay in their game. And we're going to do that by starting to reintroduce and upgrade things that we had 2 decades ago to make them modern and deep and impressive. We're taking advantage of the 2 decades of technology that has been bestowed upon us with the intervening decades of waiting, and we're going to simulate all this stuff and make it really immersive and engaging and interesting. We're going to finally let all of these kids that were playing Shogun 1 when they were like 10 years old ply their 30-year-old, 40-year-old brains to these games and see what they can come up with by implementing all of this depth, all of this mechanical depth that they can use. We're going to properly differentiate units. We're going to have properly modelled weather, fatigue, morale. That's another thing. See when units get exhausted in these games, they lose morale so quickly. Camels in the desert that are not tired have such an advantage over horses in the desert that are exhausted with heat exhaustion. There's so much. I even uploaded a battle that I did with the power of the desert and at Sandstorms, and I had 3 Arab factions up against 4 European factions. Let's show you this, and I'll let this play out. So we have 3v4. I just stood and watched. I didn't even really get involved in this fight. I just stood back and let my 3 Arab allies go through a sandstorm into 4 European AIs, and they absolutely hammered them. They all got tired, they all got demoralised. My Arab allies had light infantry with light armour, which is good because it means that they don't tire as much, and in sandstorms arrows are less effective, so armour is less necessary. You can run through sandstorms with light armour and just not have to worry about bows as much, because the accuracy and the line of sight and all that is so restricted, and you can just go right up into feudal knights with camels and rout them after they've exhausted themselves standing in the desert. And that is what my AI allies did by accident. I just tried to support them as they did it. I sat back. You can even see it here. You'll see my cavalry getting tired when my camels don't. You see it already. Look, I've got idle units that are losing fatigue, while camels are staying perfectly tip-top condition the whole fight. And they just rout these armies off the field. Look, lightly armoured Arab infantry, camels, skirmisher cavalry, they all have a great time in this desert in these sandstorms, and the heavy European knights and dismounted sergeants all just exhaust and get chain routed. I'll show you the chain route. These battles are spectacular. Look at these units. There's units that they have 200 men in them, these European infantry units, and they have knights that have like 108 horses in them, and they get routed by camels that have 80 guys. It's immense. Let's fast forward to this. Look at them starting to just chain route. This is just a pile through of my allies. My 3 allies just steamrolling through 4 AI factions of exhausted, heat-exhausted, demoralised, disciplined European armies, and they're all just being scattered by camels and flanks from light cavalry. Look at this. This is the AI pulling this off. And also I saw the AI attempting some nice flanks in this fight as well. Like they were sending Hashashin and horse archers right around to get really ambitious flanks. Like see that up here? See these little orange pixels up here that are way off? I'm pretty sure that was my ally that did that. I'm pretty sure. Because I saw them doing that. And look at them all, they're all just chain routing. Look at that. That's several allies worth of stuff who have just been exhausted by the heat in the desert, just chain routing off the map. It's a mass rout. And that's only possible because the nomadic desert faction allies that I had were being patient. There was an oasis that even slowed down the fight. See if these English knights just did a headlong charge into my allies, they could have done a lot better, but because the desert got to them, the heat got to them, and the camels demoralised them really well on this flank, the whole army just chain routed. This is another thing, morale just doesn't play a part in these new Total War games. It's too frustrating for players, I think, when their units rout and they don't understand why. I think they're just scared of camels as much as anything else. These developers, they don't want players to see their heavy cavalry just rout because camels get near them. What the fuck? That's what camels are for. That made so many amazing plays possible in previous Total War games. Like in that Rome 2 tournament, that CA-sponsored Rome 2 tournament that I did in 2013. I was all about those camels for that exact reason. It's so cool. You rout the enemy without even having to fight them. That's the acme of skill, holy shit. To subdue the enemy without even fighting them. And that's what camels do. Camels, elephants, whistling arrows, fire arrows. That's so cool. It's so unconventional. And if the game lets you do it, that's amazing. And players have to guard themselves against it, it makes the fight so much more dimensional and so much more interesting. Look at that feudal knights running away. They still have their lances, they're still a substantial unit, and they get routed at nearly full strength. Like seeing the flanks buckle, seeing their allies run, it sends them into flight. and they just rout the field. And you could do so much more with this as well. You could have night battles where fire arrows that burn trees terrify the enemy as well, and I think Three Kingdoms did that, but it was so ham-handed. They had the right idea, they just had to do it properly. They couldn't do it properly. It would have been so good if Three Kingdoms was actually a good game and it had good night battles like that, which it seemed to at least try to do. There's so much you could do with morale in these games. And let's have a look at the results screen. Look at that, there's my 3 allies that fought. I did nothing, as you can see. Look at this, a whole English army only killed 200 men. A whole Italian army only killed 300 men. And I had an ally there that killed 1,250, KD of 4, because it got a chain route. That's what I'm talking about. So, and to end this, let's just show you what even Shogun 2 managed. Even Shogun 2 managed this in 2012. This is Fall of the Samurai. Let's show you how cool this looked and what's possible. So this is a lot like Shogun 1. You've got the rain, you've got the thunder, you've got the smoke coming off of all the gunpowder that's being let loose. It's humid as well, you can even see condensation just running along the ground. It feels so energetic. You even got the nice lighting there going on with the fort. It's so good. There's so much they could do, and it's frustrating that either they don't try or they reintroduce it and it's blatantly inferior to what we had 2 decades ago. We should be expecting better, we should be expecting more. They should be honest, or if they're not lying, they should at least know. Either they don't know or they are lying, and if they don't know, they need to just do better. They need to just do better all around, I think. Let me know what you thought. A lot of interesting observations coming from people over the past few weeks or months about this game, Total War Pharaoh. A lot of the promises they're making with this game, like removing single entities from the game, I think has captivated, gotten the interest of some of the OG Total War fans, and they're scrutinising these games now and seeing just how they stack up. And like me, I think they're finding it quite lacking, and they're quick to point out, as I am, that a lot of the stuff they're doing is just reintroducing things we had 2 decades ago and usually doing it worse. Sapping is another one. They're not actually having the sapping happen in the battle, it's all just done on the deployment screen, and then you see the effects of it in the battle. You used to see the little tunnel working its way towards the wall. They finally brought back ladders, proper siege equipment. They are making things better. Don't get me wrong, this is important. I've seen people give Pixelated Apollo shit for pointing this out correctly and just totally misconstruing what he's saying. They are bringing stuff back and making it a better Total War game, but when they're doing it, they are giving us knockoff versions of things we had decades ago, and they're not being honest about it. If you're having a hard time reintroducing these really old features that we took for granted decades ago, then say that's what's going on. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, I think why they've introduced this 2-state change that they're talking about here, so one weather event, is because the way they're implementing this might be kind of desperate and simplistic. They might just be, for example, with water, like you see water over there, I think, there might just be a water table level, like a base water level they've got, and when the weather event happens, it switches to the other level, and they generate all of the maps with a point that straddles those 2 points. Like, see this part of the map? When the water level changes, water disappears. They might just be trying that. There might not be, like, I doubt they're going to implement something like when there's a depression in the terrain and the rain pours down and it's on a hill, the water will fill up in the hill. I think all of the water they're going to have might even be just on the same level down here. So even though you would expect water to fill up somewhere like over there in a depression in the ground, it's not going to do that. It's only going to appear. It's going to just be a visual effect that happens slowly, but the water is just appearing instantaneously in that place where it's been designated already by the water table where they've set it. So I don't think they're actually simulating rain collecting in depressions and gathering and pooling into ponds. I think they're just switching one map for another and having a visual effect accompany that, and that might be why they only do one weather event that happens and it just swaps between the two maps that they've got. Because that's something that they had in... what was that game? Was it Titanfall? Where they had two maps and when you went back in time it switched between them, and then Dishonored did something similar. So it might be something like that where they just switch between two maps somehow. It might be like that. I'm just speculating, but I do think that the reason for having only one weather event and not actually having dynamic weather is that the way they've chosen to implement this change in terrain, and it's a terrain change, it isn't even dynamic terrain, it's just a terrain change they've made clear, is that there are only two states for the terrain and they're just swapping them. I'm just speculating. It'll be interesting to see if I'm vindicated in a few months, but that's what I'm thinking right now. It might just be a limitation of their implementation. Anyway, let me know what you think. If you're a fan of my work and want to show support, then I have a Patreon page. I do my best to reward perks, including monthly updates on what I've got planned. Thanks to all my patrons, with special thanks to Matteo Olivetti.